Well, this is really exciting for me because today I'm with the fantastic Mo and Allegra of Watch This Space and Larissa of Rowan Farm, who are my absolute favorite business owners, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people actually probably a little bit envious of them because they have such fantastic businesses. They won the Simply Business Boost Awards with a huge cash prize. How much was yours, Larissa?
£10,000.
£10,000, and Mona Allegra was even more. Tell us
it was even more. 25,000.
20. Did you say 25?
25,000, yeah.
25,000, my goodness. And I was lucky enough to be a judge on both of those panels. MicroBizMatters is all about recognition for micro business owners. And there's a fantastic film put by Simply Business, which featured certain micro business owners as well, didn't it? Mainly on the high street, which is really good for us. So that's good. Now, when I was saying to my family that today I was going to be interviewing first up 2 consultants and an ecologist, they didn't understand my excitement about doing it. But you've both got absolutely unique businesses. Could you just tell us, Allegra, why don't you start? Why you believe Watch This Space is a unique business?
Sure. So Watch This Space is a diversity and inclusion consultancy, which, as you say, doesn't sound particularly glamorous and sexy, but where we think that we're different is that we really focus in on helping organizations to understand the real benefits of diversity and inclusion. It's not just a nice have, it's not about, fluffy, nice things to do for people. It actually generates profit and results and success for your business. It makes your business more effective. And we work with organizations to help them figure out exactly where it is that they can start, because I think a lot of people know that they could be doing more around diversity and inclusion, and they know there's a lot of work to be done, but it feels overwhelming and baffling and they just don't know where to start. So we help them really figure out where they can start, where they can make meaningful changes, and then help them to put a roadmap in place to do those changes, and then work with them to facilitate those steps so that they can really grow and develop and bring out the innovation that comes with being more inclusive.
Oh, fabulous. And Mo, you really do want to change the world, don't you? I mean, when the 3 of you, was it with Rachel, got together, which was, I think, was it during lockdown that you actually got together? So, and you actually really decided that, you the 3 of you could change the world, didn't you? Tell us what.
Yeah, it was. So it was, in fact, Rachel was actually on a holiday in Japan still when we were talking about this, and we were saying, Rach, I think you need to come back from your holiday. The world's like closing all the borders, and they were still on holiday, her and her husband. And we talked about the fact we had some time, and maybe this was the time to try and do something. And then when Rachel came back, in fact, those early days of lockdown, we had really long Zoom calls as well, because there was nothing else to do. Some of them involved a few beers or glasses of wine as well, but there were a lot of discussions then, and that's really where it started from. And to start with, because we were in lockdown, it was setting up social media accounts, and we ran some webinars. Quite hard to think back what we did in those early days. That to start with, that got us quite a lot of attention quite quickly, because that was around April 2020, and then the summer of 2020 is when the Black Lives Matter movement was being talked about everywhere. So we were sort of then the people that were really in the moment of the discussions that were going on.
Yeah, fabulous. Great. And, one of the wonderful things is about both your businesses, I'll come to Larissa now, is the actual presentation of your businesses is unique in your particular fields. And I think that a lot of that comes from the beautiful visual representations on your websites and the films that you've made and various things. And Larissa's, I think, must be the most beautiful product business I've ever come across. Larissa, just tell us a little bit about why, well, everything you do is absolutely unique, but it's also absolutely beautiful with your baby wraps and slings that you design, and just tell us about it.
So I design and manufacture woven baby wraps. They're all made in the UK in a wonderful mill up in Burnley, which is one of the really old textile mills. And then they're created, like they're actually sewn by a machinist that I have, and dispatched from here in like our little house in the countryside all over the world. And I think one of the things that's really unique about it is I've always had sustainability at the core of everything since day one. And that's, I've been able to draw on my background in ecology to make sure that it is as sustainable as I possibly can, but also being aware that even manufacturing something is never going to be fully sustainable because you're still creating something new, but just doing what I can in the process. And I think, yeah, that kind of bit, hopefully, that's what stands out about my sling business compared to some of the others. And also keeping it small as well. So, I mean, it would be amazing to have a massive business, but I like the fact that it's small. I like the fact that I run by pre-orders and the wraps I make are all sold and there's not massive amounts of leftover stock that needs to find a home or be repurposed. Yeah, so that's what I do.
And how, as an ecologist, did you learn how to design these beautiful wraps and slings?
That was always something I did in my spare time. I've always been really interested in art, but never able to actually draw things, and that put me off for many years. And then I discovered digital art and manipulation of images and using photographs or stock images and changing them through Photoshop and Illustrator to create the image in my mind. So I was working as an ecologist in a job that was sort of going in a different direction to what I wanted it to be. And at the time carrying my son a lot in slings, and it became a bit of a special interest for me. And my partner said, why don't you just make your own? So I spent the time on the train going into work and back and coming up with ideas and doing research, and then the evenings with a glass of wine, sort of drawing out the designs. And then Rowan Bay was born.
Great. And is it about 5 years that you've been doing this, something like that?
Yeah.
In those 5 years, you kind of like moved from designing and doing them in London and using them for your baby boy at that time. Yeah, is that right? And to actually moving to Norfolk, tell us about the sheep.
Oh yeah, so
and the importance of wool, because I think that's a beautiful thing.
When I was in London, my first experience with sheep, we were actually looking after a small flock of grey-faced Dartmoor in central London, and I just absolutely loved that part of the job. And it was when I was creating the wraps, it was always my dream to be able to create my own wraps from my own wool. And we made the decision to move back to Norfolk so we could start our own businesses. So the cost of living was a little bit cheaper, and we had family support around to allow us both to do that. And then we were lucky to find a place where there was a field. And one day said to my neighbour, "Oh, it'd be nice to put some sheep there." And she said, "Oh, I know the farmer. Let's have a chat to him." And then he was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And I've now got 15 Shetland sheep that are as much a part of the family as the children almost.
Fabulous. And then that's evolved into a separate kind of business as well, hasn't it, with sheep?
So through meeting people locally through wool, I was approached to see if I wanted to take over an existing business called Naked Wool, which makes Shetland knitting wool and knitting kits, all from local like flocks in Norfolk and Suffolk, rather than actual Shetland flocks up in the Shetland Isles. So I took that on, and that means that I can use the wool in all aspects. So I can use it for crafters, and then use the finer wool for the wraps. And using it like sort of gardening side of things, all the waste goes into the garden, so there's no waste for it. It all has a purpose.
It's beautiful. And one of the other unique things, I guess, is the fact that we did notice as judges when we were looking at, was the fact that you'd created from customers, like international ambassadors, really, in different countries, that actually, because they're actually, you know, using the slings and wraps, they're the best people. Your customers turn from customers into ambassadors. Tell us about that idea. Where did that come from?
That was something that I came up with really early on, with the very first line of wraps. The baby wearing community is very, there's lots of different groups, so that they connect through different groups within like in their countries or within their brands. And to build a brand, I wanted to reach out to as many people as possible. So I put an advert out for ambassadors, and I had, I think, starting off about 5, and I sent them the wraps to test, and they then send the wrap around to a group of other parents who test it, and then the word gets out there, and I feel like it's not honest, like they give honest reviews, so parents get to find out what it's like from someone other than me, because obviously I'm gonna rant and rave about how great they are, but it's nice to have honest reviews from other parents. And that's just evolved, and I ended up with ambassadors from all over Europe, even into Argentina. Well, I'll never send a wrap to Argentina again, because the customs there is an absolute nightmare.
Brilliant, absolutely great, and it's really turned into kind of community, because you have lots of people that are this is a sustainability thing. You have lots of people that are converters as well, that you found, that can turn the wraps, after they're no longer needed for the babies, into all sorts of things, from bags. Well, you tell us about that. So it has built into, you know, a single kind of product line that's absolutely beautiful and unique, has actually built into this wider community. Tell us how the converting of the wraps came about.
So, the idea is, I mean, like any sling is great to carry your baby. You don't have to have the most expensive sling out there. But the way that I produce them means that they are at the higher end of the market. But the idea is you can buy one and have it for life. So whether you would pass it down to your children as a wrap, or a lot of parents like to have keepsakes from their baby wearing days. So I've connected with people who will make bags, makeup bags. They can make cushion covers, blankets, all sorts of different things, and I've added them to the website so people know where to go to have these things made, and then the wrap can stick around for a long time. So it's almost more of an investment than just something simply to carry your baby around with. Yeah,
lovely. Well, the reason I spent a lot of time with that is that I think a lot of the people watching, I don't know what you think, Allegra and Mo, but I think that, you know, how a business can evolve around, you know, one idea of a very high quality, beautifully designed product into actually a community of word of mouth, of influencers, really, so that you're actually with very little money, but an awful lot of connections, you can actually develop a business and develop the market. And the other thing is, obviously, I wrote a book called The Happypreneur, about the happypreneurship philosophy that I created. And the 3 of you are all happypreneurs. And I think by you just describing your businesses, it actually shows that you're doing something that you love and something that you do very well, which is the first part of being a happypreneur. Mo and Allegra, in terms of this big issue of discrimination, which I want to actually come on to with all 3 of you, and I'm really talking about discrimination in terms of the workplace, and I'm talking about discrimination in terms of being a startup or a business owner, or even moving from the workplace in a difficult situation to taking the risk to do something on your own. What would your advice be to other business owners in terms of getting to a place that you've got to, where you absolutely believe in something and you're doing something and you're making it work, and you're looking forward to the next day of doing something, when at the moment, you're feeling in a fairly low place because you're actually being discriminated about, and you can talk about your individual things if you like. So could you just tell us what your advice would be, what your tips, what your personal experiences would be about if you're in a bit of a low place because of discrimination happening to you, how you can get to the place that the three of you are now in?
Yeah, so I think we can both talk about experiences around discrimination probably at great length. I never ever intended to be self-employed. It wasn't something that I'd ever really wanted to do. I was quite happy taking a paycheck off somebody else and having somebody else find the business for me and get me to do the work. I was perfectly comfortable with that. I was climbing the corporate ladder quite happily. And then I got pregnant with my first child and everything changed overnight. And I think potentially naively, I assumed it was 2018, things are different now. It's okay to, to have a baby while you're working. And I was really shocked, by how instantly, the switch was flicked and suddenly it was a whole different ballgame. And a lot of people told me to give up the job and go out on my own. And I resisted that for a very, very long time because I was really scared about it. I was terrified of taking that responsibility, especially with a baby on the way to look after. The idea of being responsible for the business myself terrified me. But it got to a stage where I was on maternity leave and I knew I couldn't go back to that environment. I knew that wasn't going to be possible. It wasn't going to be sustainable for my mental health, for my well-being, for my family. So I left that job, and then very much because it had never been something I planned to do, and I'd resisted the idea of going self-employed, so I didn't really have much of a plan. So it was very much a kind of what now situation. But honestly, and it's not easy, and I wouldn't necessarily advocate just jumping out of your job with no kind of plan, but that situation does actually really push you to, well, you have to make it work. I think a lot of people have an idea that they'd like to become self-employed and they have a side hustle for a while, but because they've got a full-time job that is taking up a lot of their time and energy, and because they feel comfortable with that, they put off really developing the side business and the side interest. So once you're kind of thrust into it like that, it forces you to really commit and go all in and make this work, because you have to make it work. There's no other option. So sometimes I think if things are that bad and work is getting you down, to the extent that it was me, sometimes just jumping and taking that leap is the best thing that you can do. And just, I think we've all spoken and heard Larissa talking about how her business came out of her personal experiences and her passions. And I think for Mo and I, this very much came out of something that really mattered to us. We felt so passionate about, really driven by our own experiences, as well as our kind of desire to see something better for everybody around us. It's not, this whole idea that you do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's not that simple. Do something you love and you'll work every day of your life for twice as many hours as you would have done if you were employed, and probably for less money. But the sense of fulfillment that you get from it, and the sense of purpose and passion and satisfaction when it's your business and your success and you're having a meaningful impact in the world that really matters to you, is so incredibly positive for your mental health and your well-being that it's so worth it. But that said, it's not for everybody. So if you are experiencing discrimination, you don't want to sort of go out there and run your own business, you reach out to people. There are organizations that will help you, people like ACAS, who are great for mediation and helping to sort out problems. Come and talk to us. We're happy to chat to people who are struggling. We've been there, we know what it's like. I know from very, very bit of first-hand experience what a toll it can take on your mental health. So I'm really happy. Mo and I are both coaches, so we're really happy to kind of have a bit of a chat with people and give some informal advice and how well we can. As much as possible, we want to get into those organisations that are being difficult and help turn them around and help educate them about why not only it's not a very nice thing to do, but it's bad for business. It's it's hurting your business.
Those figures are amazing. Mo, do you want to trot out those figures again? Because they're, I mean, it's a real eye opener, but I think we've got to keep repeating them. Kind of, what are the benefits of inclusivity and diversity?
Yeah.
And equality?
So the way we get quite a lot of attention from CEOs is by stating the fact that companies that are diverse teams output 19% more innovation than their competitors. That one uses people's attention because it shows that you need a wide range of people to output those ideas. Diverse teams make better decisions, faster decisions. Teams with greater gender diversity are more profitable. People learn better from those environments because they're working with different kinds of people. And if you have a team, so for example, if you have a team that's creating a product or service and everyone is the same and comes from the same perspective, then you're going to create something that serves those people and not everyone else. Thinking about the rest of the market. And there are lots of examples of companies who've done that, who've created products or services, forgotten about the rest of the market, and so then they don't appeal to the rest of the market. So there's lots of business benefits of why this is the right thing to do. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you're creating something, you need lots of different perspectives. You need that person in the corner of the room that says, I don't agree with this. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And that's a hard thing to do. So I used to work in corporate. And in corporate, if you're the person that doesn't agree, you get labelled as bossy, aggressive, difficult, all of those things, because you're not going with the group think. You're saying, I don't agree. I've got a different perspective. But you need those different perspectives for a successful business. And for small businesses, micro businesses, create those environments by networking and building relationships with lots of other people, lots of other small business owners, because they will give you those perspectives. And small business owners, there's usually so much community between people. And if you say to people, can you have a look at this and see what you think? Do you mind having a look at our website? Or can we talk through an idea? You'll find that people are really willing to do that. And I think that's the community that comes from small businesses. So it's not all about having to create those big teams yourself. You can network and build relationships with people.
And it's worth noting as well that it's not necessarily kind of all plain sailing once you go out on your own, because we do have an issue in terms of business leadership, in terms of representation. So, in terms of venture capital funding, 2% of it goes to female-led businesses. Yeah. And I think it's 0.02% of it goes to businesses led by women of colour. So, there's a real issue in with small businesses as well, and the businesses that we choose to promote with PR, that we celebrate on social media, that we talk about. There's a real gap there that needs addressing as well.
Well, and basically one of the things that we've learned is that the government don't think microbiz matters either, because anybody working from home is not regarded as a single person working from home, which is the way we would recommend anybody starts up their own business, like Larissa or all of us. Are discriminated against because they're not regarded as, all the government initiatives usually start 5 employees, all of the main grants and things with people that had premises, and that's discriminating against those groups that you've just talked about, Allegra, just because they're actually at home. They've got children at home.
We applied for some schemes, and we looked into some of the government schemes, and that we weren't eligible because we were too small. So there were things that were sort of lauded as great campaigns for small businesses, and they actually weren't at all. They were not aimed at us. Sorry, Allegra, spoke over you.
No, absolutely. And Tony, you mentioned people with children at home. Pregnant Than Screwed, the organisation which does amazing work campaigning against pregnancy discrimination. They won their case at the High Court recently against the government for discrimination in the support that was given to small business owners during the pandemic, because it discriminated against mothers and people who've been pregnant. And I think there was a fundamental, it really demonstrated during the pandemic how much the government either don't understand how self-employment works or don't want to understand, because they would rather support big businesses than smaller ones. But everything about the way that the support schemes worked just demonstrated they really just don't get how it works, and why people are paid by dividends rather than a regular salary, or why people might have fallow periods and busy periods, or why people might work from home instead of an office, and all of these kind of things are just clearly just not understanding how it worked, or not being willing to understand how it worked, and not being willing to support those businesses. And it's so short-sighted, because small businesses are worth such a huge amount to the economy that supporting them is so incredibly valuable, and they just didn't seem to grasp that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the one of the takeaways from what you've both said is that it isn't a level playing field at the moment, whichever way we look at it. But one of the ways that we as business owners, or somebody feeling in a bad place at the moment, can actually level it out a little bit for themselves, get some power for themselves, is to reach out into the business owner community. When you're starting up, find somebody who's in a similar kind of field, even if they're in a different area of the country, doing the same thing that you want to do. But you'll find that we are a community. We are willing to help each other, and some of the best advice you'll get from there, and that's empowering itself. And Larissa, coming to you, have you experienced any kind of I suppose discrimination from what you've done over the 5 years, and how have you dealt with it?
So for me, my business kind of almost came from discrimination at work, where it was my dream job and it was going really well, but we as a team, we were being pushed out because we were sort of rebelling against what they wanted to do. And we had a lot of people on our side, but sorry.
It's okay.
To make our lives difficult, they silenced us, and we weren't allowed to then promote what we did, and the politics became very difficult to handle. So that kind of was where I decided to go alone, because I felt like if I'd have just got another job within the similar industry, the same sort of politics, and that would just be in another place. And I don't have the capacity to deal with that and constantly fight every single day just to be able to do my job.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I ended up working for myself, because it gives me the flexibility as well to be able to work around the children and work. So I'm also autistic, and so that enables me to have breaks when I need to, and I can't sort of work in a very rigid sort of environment and a rigid job. And I don't think many employers kind of still allow for neurodiversity, and it's only taken me until this last few years to kind of realize that's what it is. But yeah, working from home allows me to sort of fit in with my own needs, and also be able to bring an income in for the family.
Yeah, and I think we have, massive targets for watch this space, and for everything that you've said about these toxic cultures, Larissa. Probably start off with the sector leaders that don't pay in 30 days or less, which I've been campaigning for 30 years. But those same sectors, and I'd include the city, the financial sector, and I'd certainly include the what I call the distribution and logistics sectors, which are obviously growing at pace, because one of the things that is incredibly discriminatory is the treatment of people on these pick-pack lines and various things in terms of, and I know from having friends that have worked on them, so I'm talking from knowledge of what these huge corporations are doing by almost treating people as an algorithm. So what happens to them is irrelevant in life terms, and how we do it, I don't know, but I do know that there is actually more safety in community, and it's probably why countries like Denmark are actually always come top, whereas in the Happiness League, whereas the United States and and the UK always end up about 19th or 20th kind of thing, because of the fact that there isn't discrimination, and people are part of a community, and they're all actually helping each other. It's part of the values that they all share in the community. And of course, what that brings with it is safety. Because the other thing is that, it's like the problem with casual racism. Casual racism actually leads to violence. It leads to aggression and violence. It moves on that kind of whole thing, and people are just not safe. So it's a huge amount of work you've got to do, Allegra and Mo, but we really appreciate you doing it. But I think for all business owners out there, what you've all said is that there are so many good reasons why, if you've got something you'd like to do, you'd really like to do it, and you've got some competence, because a lot of your competencies had been created while you were in employed positions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
So a lot of the things
I was going to say, boring things like understanding a cash flow have come from working in corporate. A career in corporate means I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's really important. We're not denigrating jobs, but we are saying that when you've got the competencies to apply to something that you really love doing, so like Larissa, like yourselves, you can actually build your life into your work kind of thing, which is a nice thing, then that's empowering. But please reach out to that wider community, build your community, because that's where your safety and power will come from. So I think it's really helpful for everybody. One of the things that started from America, which you may have noticed, and it started in about 2000, was that in order to be a serious business, you've got to be a scale up. You've got to be a high growth business. In fact, that's what you were talking earlier, Mo, about a lot of the schemes. A lot of the schemes are saying, we want investors, male investors, by the way, white male investors. We want white male investors to invest in businesses that are going to give us a big return in 5 years' time. Yeah. The fact that only 1 in 5 of them will survive the next 3 years, it's got nothing to do with it. But basically, everything is pitched on, you're not a serious business anymore in America or in the UK unless you've got a growth aspiration, and it's about high growth and various things. In terms of your businesses, what do you think about that kind of narrative that we now have? Larissa, start with you, kind of thing. What is your ambition for Rowan Farm?
Really, my ambition is to stay kind of relative as a small business, to continue doing what I'm doing, maybe to increase in terms of like the diversity of what I offer, but not in scalability, like not to become this big monopoly of like the baby wearing world or anything like that. Because the other thing is that there's lots of space for other businesses too. So like the other sling business, for example, they're all just as great and for all their own different reasons. And I think it's really important that there is diversity within the sectors as well. So working alongside them, and I'm doing working alongside another sling business, and I'm doing a photo shoot for them, and so we can still exist in the same space and work together, and that's kind of what I really enjoy about it. And that's my aspiration, is just to continue doing work like that, and working with other people rather than trying to grow so big that I kind of become this big business. That's kind of where I want to go.
Lovely. And you've already said you integrate your hours into your lifestyle anyway, so that's probably, not trying to lead you, but in order to maintain that, you probably don't actually want to be in terms of a big team and lots of people to look after and things like that.
No, I think for me, being part of the family is really important, and being around for the family is really important, and also showing my children that they can do this themselves as they grow. Lovely. So I do. My eldest is now 15, and she has no idea what she wants to do. But I said to her, like, she's been involved in so much of my work over the years. Even when I was employed, she used to come in and do days at work. I said, you've actually got quite a lot of skill set already. So if you have an idea, there's nothing stopping you from developing it and running with it. And so she's sort of slowly taking away all the possibilities. And I just hope, in a way, what I'm doing is helping to influence like the next generation of business owners in that sense.
Hey, great, lovely, thank you. And Allegra and Mo, what do you think about this kind of growth narrative? Because you were talking about getting some investment and things, weren't you? So tell us what you think about it, this whole narrative.
So we are hoping to scale up. We would like to build the business and grow it. However, I would say, you know, this idea that you have to do that is incredibly toxic and totally kind of distract from the point, which is what do you want to achieve as a business? And Larissa's just said really eloquently, if your purpose and your goals for the business don't involve a huge team, then that's not the right path for you. I think for us, what we would really like to do is be able to make our services as widely available as possible, to have people to deliver training and deliver the audit work that we do and things like that around the country, so that it's not just us. And that, so similar to Larissa, I've got 2 young children. My work is incredibly flexible around looking after them and my lifestyle, and that's really, really important to me. Mo and I are both very kind of focused that the business will always be entirely based around flexible working. Any team members that come on board for us, they set their own hours, they work when they want to, they have a task list to do, and when they get through that is entirely up to them. It's for them to sort of manage.
And I was just going to add to that what we also want, what Larissa said really stood out for me, is this isn't about us having to dominate the world, if you like. There is so much room, there's so much to work on, so many inequalities in the world, that there's so much room for other people too. And so what we don't want is to become one of those toxic brands that are in competition with everybody else, and that kind of atmosphere, because that's why I left corporate world, to get away from those things. And so we don't want to recreate anything like that. So I would say, Allegra may disagree with me, scalability, we do want to scale it, but not become this big operation that operates like the businesses we left.
Mo's written some great blog posts on the kind of scarcity mentality and this idea that you have to dominate your sector, and it's not how life works. People don't buy from one brand, they don't only do business with one company. It's just not how the world works. There is space for everyone, there's lots of different people. And again, it comes back to your purpose. If you're really passionate about what you want to achieve, you'll achieve that better working with a community of other people who also are focused on the same goals, and that's definitely really important to us.
Great, lovely. Well, one last question for all of you. When Tina Bowden and I founded MicroBizMatters 10 years ago, we wanted to do something that would actually help people keep going in their business, because your resilience is just so important. There are ups and downs. It's not that growth chart that you actually see in the initiatives and various things. So is there any person or persons that actually helps you keep going now in your business that you'd like to tell us about? Mo, Allegra, and it doesn't have to be the same person. Is somebody you'd like to say, I've got somebody that really helps keep going?
I mean, so for me, so Mo and Rachel are really, really important for me, because it's, I was out on my own for a little while all by myself, and now working with co-founders is a really wonderful thing, to have that sort of, somebody to share the ups and downs with, and support each other along the way, and just talk it all through with, and just be there with you. And I'm really, really lucky to have an incredibly supportive partner at home as well, who listens to me at great length while I talk about everything that's going on in the business, and put some input. he came up with our name as well, which he never tired of telling anyone who will listen that the name for the business was
it's very clever. Did he come up with the underline?
Yeah, all of it.
That is brilliant, because if you can remember that, you're top of Google, aren't you? Oh, it's absolutely fantastic.
And I was going to say a similar answer, actually, friends and family. So definitely family, my husband and friends, but also I've got friends that have their own businesses as well. So they've been really helpful as well to talk to, and have their own ups and downs and been through a lot of the same things that we're going through. So that's been really important too.
Oh, great. And Larissa, who keeps you going in your work life?
It's definitely my partner. He's always there, listening to me when I have doubts, and it's just brilliant. From even supporting me with the business boost grant, he was the one that made the videos for me. He'll help out with packing orders if I need to, and it was his idea, in the sense, to start the business. Like, he gave me the confidence to do it, I guess. I have a lot of self-doubt at times, and I'll express that to him and say, no, you're doing great, you can do this, there's no reason why you can't. And so I don't always listen to him, but I try to most of the time.
Right. Well, I think the thing that shines through with your three answers there is that, it's a bit of a myth, this go it alone stuff. I would suggest that you find somebody that can help you keep going, to actually talk to about the whole thing, and keep you going future. And I've been lucky enough, I've had 35 years now with my business partner, Claire. So, it's just been the most fantastic thing, and she's now my best friend as well. So it's wonderful. Great. Thank you very much for joining us on MicroBizMatters Day. Did you enjoy it? Was it okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you very much indeed. It was absolutely brilliant. Bye bye. I won't ask you to sing again. Bye bye.